The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Gabriel D. Vine from Future Rant.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Group. Thank you for having me. Hello, Internet. Hello, posterity.
Ian DiMartino from Coin Journal.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Tone Bays from Liberty Life Trail.
Hey everyone, coming to you live from Moscow, Russia. I think it's like 2 a.m. here, and as usual when I'm abroad, Friday night, we're getting into my party time, but it's below freezing and snowing, so I'm happy to be indoors.
That sounds awful. And I'm Thomas Hunt with the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. Donald Trump elected president. Before the election, Bitcoin traders believed that a Trump win could trigger a Bitcoin price boost. On the evening of the election, the Bitcoin price did surge to around $730 before dropping down to the $715 range. As CNBC said, Bitcoin, gold, and other safe haven currencies were boosted by demand after the Trump victory. And finally, Ian DiMartino's article in Coin Journal, What President Trump Means for Bitcoin. So I'll just go ahead and ask you, Gabriel D. Vine, is President Trump good for Bitcoin?
I'm going to say yes. I don't believe it's possible for really any government action to be bad for Bitcoin. As an anti-fragile technology, hierarchical institutions' available range of actions is insufficient to do anything but temporary damage or temporary setbacks to a technology like Bitcoin or the internet or any other distributed, decentralized type of technology. So as such, a Clinton win or a Trump win, they're both going to be great for Bitcoin in different ways. For Trump, I think the main advantage that everyone seems to, in my opinion, correctly be diagnosing is the uncertainty. He's not a politician in the traditional sense. So people's knowledge of his policy stance is far more limited, possibly than any previous president ever. And that uncertainty is what caused the market surge in Bitcoin and gold during the election when it dawned on all these clueless people that he was going to win, when it was, in my opinion, so obvious to see.
But also saw a sell-off on the Dow and some fears in the futures market of the normal traditional financial market.
Right. So there was a surge in risk-off assets and a collapse, or a super sell, a quick sell-off in traditional assets, and then we've seen a rebound. And I think that has to do with, at least partially on the emotional level, traders, speculators reacting to the fact that the election was resolved right away. It was not a contentious result on a literal level. At an emotional level, with the mainstream media reporting that Clinton won the popular vote and such, causes a lot of emotional distress and confusion. However, on a basic level, on a political level, and on a market level for information gathering and algos, market algorithms, they're relieved that there is some sort of way forward and people know what's going on again. However, I do believe that we're going to see crazy turmoil and volatility moving forward, ups and downs, as nobody's sure what a Trump presidency is going to mean for the world economy in general.
And in the traditional financial markets, people had predicted a downturn if Trump was elected, not necessarily because of his policies, just because of the uncertainty. He truly is an outsider. We don't have any political record of what he's going to do. He hasn't been a governor or a senator. We just don't know. And that uncertainty affects the markets. Ian DiMartino, your thoughts on the Trump victory in Bitcoin? think you're muted. Unmute. Yeah.
While Ian's figuring out his mic, I will say that I am still coming to terms with the fact that so many people believed the mainstream media's narrative about Clinton win, and the prediction markets, even the traders were fooled by the mainstream media. It's truly shocking to me. And I suppose that's, I'm part of, new media, right? This group is a perfect example of, a coverage of current events that is not supported by, CIA operatives and such that are at the, and the banking conglomerates and everything that back the mainstream media. But it's really shocking to me that so many people still believe those narratives that are being pushed on us. And I'm still coming to terms with the fact that anybody's surprised, the fact that traders had Trump at only 18 or 22% in the morning of the election day. I mean, come on, people, wake up.
It wasn't just a belief in Hillary Clinton's victory. I think it was also a fear of Trump, that people, they don't know him, and we really don't right now. It's an uncertain period, but they had this dislike of Trump. They desperately wanted Hillary to get through, and they were kind of latching on to any optimistic thing they see. When now, if we step back and we see this in the context of Brexit, this is the American Brexit, and that people are upset. And unfortunately, the Democrats did have a candidate that could have fed to the upset people. His name was Bernie Sanders. And as we see from the DNC emails, they chose not to run him. And everyone is pretty much tying the election up right there. But Ian, let's go back to the issue and let's talk about Bitcoin. So what have you got? I still having audio issues, Ian. I thought we had you a second ago.
I just want to broaden my point very quickly, which is I long ago lost faith in governments in general and how our democracy, quote unquote democracy, functions. And so it's the general faith in the electoral process, the general faith in government's ability to do anything at all that has not eroded to the point where people expect, shocks and failures from that institution. And so that's what's a little bit surprising to me, is that so few people have woken up to that truth in what I consider to be a truth. And I think we're going to see that very quickly over the next couple, 3 years.
All right, let's try Ian one more time. Ian, microphone, any luck? Doesn't seem like it. Is it plugged in, turned on, the mode switch? We were talking to you before. I will keep this open. Just make some noise and we'll go to you. But currently it doesn't seem like it's working. Try popping in and out. We're going to go to Tone Vase. Tone Vase, go ahead. What did you think of Trump in the election? I knew you were predicting Trump, kind of in favor of Trump, I'd say a little bit, let's say.
I was. I mean, I was hoping he would win, and I expect him to win. Videos on market analysis, I was kind of pushing for Trump. I kept warning people, watch for a surprise win by Trump, be a drop in the markets. But I also said it was going to be very, very temporary because it was just going to be a scare tactic. Down when Trump started to pull close, the markets rallied right before the election when Hillary wasn't going to get arrested by the FBI. But then when Trump wins, which, hey, for the first time in my life at least, it looks like the Electoral College finally worked out. I was always like, I never really liked it before. But if the media reports are true, which I don't believe Hillary won the popular vote. I find that really hard to believe because 83% of registered voters came out to vote, which is a new historical record, like of existed. And amount was basically because of Trump. So I find it kind of hard to believe that she won the popular vote. And even if she did, the mere fact that Trump percent of the registered public to come out and vote is pretty damn impressive. Okay, so what does that mean for Bitcoin? So of course, everyone jumps to conclusion. By the way, Thomas, in your description, You know how you quoted one of the articles just from 2 days ago? I mean, the election was 2 days ago. And it said, oh, gold was up, what, 2.4% or something? It was like, do you know where gold is right now?
No, I don't. Where's gold right now?
Like 10% in the last 2 days.
10% up or down? Sorry.
Down.
Ooh, that's
Gold was
unexpected.
gold was down $44 today at one point, just today. Okay, per ounce of gold,
Do
right?
you think
Gold is
people
back
suddenly
down.
have faith in the Trump economy? I mean, it's day 3 of his president-elect period. Seems a little early.
No, it's basically the way, kind of like the way markets work. It was the obvious trade that wasn't so obvious. And look, Trump is good for markets. Trump is amazing for markets. I mean, it's Reagan. The Reagan administration had the stock market go up like 500% or something like that. I fully expect the stock markets to rally. I mean, now that the Trump has the Republican House and the Republican Senate, I mean, he might be able to pull off that 15 or 20% corporate tax rate, and that's going to be huge. That's going to cause amazing profits for big companies, and that's good. That will help drive the economy. Um, um, trying to think what else am I gonna disagree with? Um, gonna be
Can
disagreeing
I
with a
hop
lot
in
of
real
people.
quick? Can you guys hear me?
All right, looks like we got Ian.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
jump
Ian.
in.
Yeah, you guys can hear me this time now?
Yep, we
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Yeah, maybe I'll give you a couple things to disagree with too, Tom. But yeah, the uncertainty with Trump is probably definitely good for Bitcoin. What I think has more potential is his anti-regulation stance. He talked about getting rid of the Frank Dodd Act, which would drop a lot of know your customer laws. Bitfinex got fined $75,000 for allowing future leverage trading on their site to U.S. customers, which I guess is illegal if you don't fill out the proper paperwork. The problem with that is, though, we don't really know how serious he is about dropping the Frank Dodd Act and what he'd replace it with, or if he's just going to kind of like let the banks run wild and do whatever they want, which would make it easier for companies maybe on ramps to get to Bitcoin, less anti-money laundering laws and stuff. But at the same time, you get rid of all the bank regulation. If they do what they tend to do, which is use that freedom to make risky bets that end up screwing themselves out and end up screwing themselves over, and they have a Trump administration who probably won't give them a bailout, then we could see some major chaos in the financial markets, which would definitely be good for Bitcoin.
Now,
Well,
to
Ian,
be
let me
clear,
let me ask
the
you a question, Ian.
Dodd-Frank bill would have to be canceled by Congress. It's not an executive action. Some
Right,
of the
but
things
it's funny.
Trump said so far is he's going to roll back all the Obama executive actions. So a lot of things about immigration, climate change, some of those things. Obama just signed those. Trump's going to unsign them. But this one, he'd actually have to go through Congress and officially repeal it, right?
Yeah, I would think so. But he's got the bully pulpit, and he's got Republicans controlling both houses of Congress. We don't know how willing those Republicans are going to go with Trumpism, or if they're going to try to keep the Congress more traditional Republican. That's just one of the many things we're just going to have to wait and see.
Some of them definitely have
Trump
coattails. They
administration.
came into power because of Trump. They owe him now. We're going to see some of that. But there is a lot of argument saying that Trump is not a traditional Republican. So let's not be so quick to say he has both houses. I agree.
Right,
The Republican Party has those houses, but it's a fractured split as well. So
Yeah, but still better. Hey, Ian, so let me ask you a question. This is where I'm gonna significantly disagree with you. So you're saying that the elimination of Dodd-Frank and having better on-ramps for Bitcoin, articles you said, if Trump is gonna crack down, Trump might crack down on remittance or make remittance easier. You're saying to Mexico. See, you're saying that those things are good for Bitcoin and bad for Bitcoin.
I don't think I really talk too much about remittance. Let me check my article.
You mentioned it in that article of yours, and you're saying it will make an on-ramp easier to do remittance, like Bitcoin remittance companies will have an easier time connecting to bank accounts.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean,
Right. So I think
remittance market is huge. If Bitcoin can just grab a small part of it, then it would be, I mean, multiple times larger than all of Bitcoin.
But here's my view, right? Having a better on-ramp system for Bitcoin, I don't think it's that good for Bitcoin. If Trump goes in and eliminates a lot of the regulation, I mean, the regulation is why Bitcoin exists. Again, I'm here in Russia where Bitcoin is technically illegal, and if you look at the charts of what do you call it? When you buy it for cash, what's the main website to buy Bitcoin?
Local
person to
Bitcoins?
person? Local Bitcoins, thank you. If you look at the chart of local Bitcoins, it's blowing up in Russia, the place where it's like most illegal, supposedly, right? So relaxing regulation is not that good for Bitcoin. I think Hillary would have been slightly better for Bitcoin. I mean, her raising taxes through the roof would create a huge use case for Bitcoin to hide your money from the government. That's going to be kind of eliminated with Trump. I'm not sure what Trump's view on drugs are, right? I think he's a little hardcore anti-drugs. So that would be very good for
Now,
Bitcoin.
one would think as a businessman, he'd want the taxes from drugs. He'd want the income. It's another market, especially with the legalization in 4 states.
He said that he's pro medical marijuana. He's or he wants to be cautious with coming to legalization. But I wouldn't call him like quite a drug warrior or anything.
Well, and remember, this is a complex individual. He used to be a Democrat. He used to have much more, inline views with myself. He has shifted. We have to see where he's going to end up on every issue. It's very difficult to track and tell what he really believes.
I think Trump's going to be open-minded. So if he's not hardcore anti-drugs, that's also not that great for Bitcoin, right? I mean, legalizing drugs will literally destroy the Bitcoin price because that's a huge use case for Bitcoin. People would love to use their credit card to buy their drugs. They just can't. So that would go away. I know Trump is against abortion, so that's why I kind of assumed he would be kind of anti-drugs. People seem to be on similar sides of those issues. But again, like he's not a feminist like Hillary, right? Like, if Hillary would be hardcore, she'll never legalize prostitution. She'd never even consider it. Again, as a feminist, like the last thing she would want is like her husband gambling. So forget about legalization of gambling. So these are the kinds of things that are good for Bitcoin. The fact that these things are not going to get legalized, right? But then again, Trump can't really do anything, right? It's still going to go through Congress. But my view is the more lenient Trump is with the gray markets and wanting to collect tax revenue, be for Bitcoin fundamentally to maintain the circular economy that it currently has. Now, the fear trade only lasted about 24 hours, right? After that, reality set in. And reality set in quickly because of Brexit. And people realized that all that panic was stupid. I still say Britain probably will not do a Brexit unless the euro collapses first. And still kind of down, but I think the currency will rebound as well.
Can I get back in here?
Go ahead.
Well, the thing with what you said about regulation, I mean, that really depends on what we want Bitcoin to be. Do we want it to be this just weird digital currency that drug buyers, which pro-drug, don't get me wrong, but that just like computer geeks and drug buyers use, or do we want it to become the primary payment system around the world and become a crypto revolution that the entire world gets to enjoy and reap the benefits of? If we want that, then we need to get some mainstream adoption. We need some on-ramps to make it easier for the average person to use. I mean, I wrote a book about how to use Bitcoin, and when someone asks me like, how do I get started with Bitcoin, it's still like I gotta sit there and think. I gotta figure out exactly what they know about the internet and what their computer can handle, and Should I tell them to just go to a little web exchange, or should I tell them to try to download Bitcoin Core and go through that whole process? If we want it to become more than just this little niche thing that computer geeks use, then we need some on-ramps for the people to be able to get their money into Bitcoin. The more people we have buying Bitcoin, ultimately, the higher the price will go.
Now I would say
that
to
dwarf any drug market that we have online.
I would say to remember Andreas's argument that maybe Bitcoin's not for the U.S. We have other countries that have more pressing currency needs, whereas our currency, our credit system is pretty solid here. Bitcoin is kind of a hobbyist tool here. It's not necessarily a survival method like it might be in other countries. So we might just have to wait. I think what's important here is that we have a safe environment essentially to code Bitcoin. I think we're going to code Bitcoin in the US. We're going to use it in the world. And what we need is reasonable laws here that the companies can work with, and not a crackdown, not a negative. So
can I talk real quick? Dangerous side of the Trump presidency for Bitcoin is he's never been really in favor of privacy on the internet. During the Republican primaries, he said he wants to bring back the Patriot Act. He says when it comes between privacy and security, he would err on the side of security. And you combine that with the fact that he doesn't quite understand how technology or the internet works. He thinks he can call Bill Gates and have him shut down parts of the internet to stop funding from ISIS. What's going to happen when a bill comes to his desk and they tell him, "Hey, Mr. President, there's this weird digital currency that people are using to send money to ISIS," and he already doesn't understand how the internet works. How's he going to understand how Bitcoin works? That's where we could get some really dangerous and scary and misdirected legislation pointed towards Bitcoin. And to Gabe's point, I don't think that will destroy Bitcoin. I don't think it'll be the end all be all, but it could really slow us down, and it could slow down adoption. And a lot of people could get hurt in the meantime, with if he passes some weird legislations that makes, using Bitcoin illegal or just really restrictive.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and I'll take the other side. I mean, we have 700 altcoins, and like 99.9% of them are scams. And you have these people are out there like to them. Like, I would love for Dan Larimer to go away. I would love for Vitalik to go away. Zuko has been doing like Zcash is insane, right? So look, if he declares this, then all these people just go away. They're not going to be out there nonsense. So in a way, it wouldn't be too bad because Bitcoin ain't
would
going
they go
nowhere.
away, or would they just go to a different country though?
Well, they can go anywhere, but they can't be public people anymore, right? A lot of them are American citizens. They're going to have to launch their coins anonymously like Satoshi did, and then they have no chance. And why these altcoins even have, relevance is because the people that are creating them like want to be stars, and they're able to pitch them and sell them, and they profit from that, right? So all of that goes away if they are now in danger of, going to prison for launching this nonsense, right?
I mean, why do you think regulation is going to stop altcoins when regulations won't stop Bitcoin? I mean,
it won't stop altcoins.
People can just release altcoins if they want, and they can release from a different country, or find someone in a different country to be the face of it.
They can't be the face of it at that point, right? Especially if you have a U.S. passport. That's the problem, right? You drop the face.
And I think with a faceless team, it's harder to sell. It's harder to make it into a big thing. You can't have Zuko's triangle or any kind of papers or citations. But I think
I'm saying you can get someone from a different country.
I think Mimble, there's this new Bitcoin alternative, some kind of anonymous thing, and it's being written by Lord Voldemort. And all the other programmers on the project have Harry Potter aliases. And I'm hearing good things about it. I mean, I really am hearing, and who knows what's going to happen. So what do you think, Tony?
Yeah, no, it sounds that might actually sound reasonable. Look, you rarely get scammed by anonymous people. You usually get scammed by people you trust. The people, then you're actually going to look.
Tell that to all the people that bought Crypto Note.
I don't know.
All right, and also I want to open this up to the chat. We're watching the chat, and I'm going to scroll through and try to find some questions. I know there's a couple minutes of delay, so if you guys want to put your questions or just your statements for the kind of the debate. One of the things I saw in the chat that I found interesting is, do we expect to see a reopening of the 9/11 investigation? This isn't Bitcoin related, but personally, I would love to see a reopening of the investigation, but I don't think we're going to see it. Let's go down the line. Tone?
No, I don't think Trump wants to open up that can of worms. I don't think he wants to go there. Now, I fully expect, the irony of all ironies would be if the Clintons, before Trump's inauguration, so over the next few months, just get together, take whatever money they can scrape together, then run away to Russia and seek asylum like Snowden. Because I think he will go after the Clinton Foundation. They're all in danger. I don't see him going after. I don't see him going after 9/11. One of the reasons is because it happened on the Republican watch, and he does need those Republicans on his side now that they're in the House and the Senate. He will. I can see him going after the Justice Department. I can see the FBI director Comey getting in a lot of trouble for being a wimp with the Democrats. What do you call them? Like, everyone at the top of the Justice Department might see themselves in serious legal action, including Lynch. She's the Attorney General. Is definitely doing some criminal shit lately.
Yeah,
so I can see that.
coming into this idea of the 9/11, just in general, these type of scandals and secrets and what you might call conspiracies, as opposed to conspiracy theories. In other words, secret plans by groups of people in order to seize power, in order to harm certain people, in order to create the situation where power can be grabbed. This is something that's been going on for the entirety of human history. However, unfortunately for conspiracists, they began to use, instead of, piece of parchment with sealed wax on it, or individual physical messengers passing notes to people that are burnt afterward, things like that. We're seeing, email and such being used, and basically people over about 50 or 60 that have not been involved directly in IT are very ignorant about the security risks of these communication methods. And therefore, we have entered into the age of leaks. But since Snowden, we only reached one big step up. And we've been kind of at this Snowden level for 3 years. In my opinion, we will be rapidly ascending to the next level of the leak age. And that is going to involve 9/11 documents. I strongly believe that WikiLeaks or some other organization will be releasing some Federal Reserve documents that will prove evil intent, intent to steal money from people, to fund terrorist operations. We're going to see leaks, further leaks from the DNC, which we've already seen has actually put the Democratic Party on its knees because of the straight up fraud that's been revealed. We're going to see, like Tone said, information about the Department of Justice and the FBI and Congress members. So we're going to see all these leaks of public figures. We're going to see, in my opinion, murders, more quote unquote murder suicides, which is not the term where somebody kills people around them and kills themselves. It's where somebody is suicided, in other words, murdered with a thin cover-up story, just like it happened a lot in 2014-15 with the banker, slew dozens of banker suicides, people that happened in, mid-level managers and stuff that happen to be privy to large-scale fraud. So I think we're going to see this leak situation really ratchet up even more. If you think it's bad now, it's going to be so much more intense.
Okay, I want to follow up on this leak situation. Do you think that Trump will pardon Snowden? And then, Tony, you can go ahead and talk to him.
It doesn't sound like it.
Now, on Twitter, he seemed open to it, but again, this was before, and it's a tweet.
Yeah.
So, Gabe, yes or no, just kind of quick. Snowden?
I'm going to say no. He doesn't have the balls.
Ian?
No.
I'm also going to say no, but, obviously I hope so.
I hope so as well. Tony, you had something else to say? Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say I think he has the balls, but I don't think he will because, like what was said earlier, if Trump really believes in security over privacy, then he doesn't agree with Snowden. Because if he chooses security over privacy, then he will believe that what Snowden did was criminal. It doesn't sound like he will. Maybe towards the end of his presidency, when he doesn't have to get reelected. So maybe towards the end. So we'll see. At the end of his first term, if he thinks that that's the popular opinion that would help him stick around. I don't. I'm gonna push back on the assisted suicide stuff or that was more the Democrats and Clinton. People seem to be dying around her throughout her travels through the political sphere, but I don't see that with Trump. And
Oh, no,
another
I'm
reason
not
why I
saying
don't see.
I'm not saying it will derive from Trump. In fact, I'm saying that it will derive from other areas. This is not something that will come out of a Trump presidency, in my opinion. I'm talking about just separately.
I don't think that's a
try-
Republican Democrat thing either. I think that's more of a shadow government CIA type.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Trump is against war, so that's good. That may or may not be good for Bitcoin. I mean, we'll see, but that's good for peace in the world. So I do
mean,
like Trump
I
in
hope
that.
so. Part of my fear about Trump is that he really is a negotiator, and I don't believe that he truly has any hard and fast opinions. I believe he'll come into the conversation and say, "I'm 100% for this," because he's negotiating. Then he'll come back to 50 and 20, and he'll be like, "Okay, I can do it with half of this." And it was all a negotiation. And we're like, "Oh," and I hope. I mean, it's kind of absurd, but I hope the anti-Muslim comments. I hope a lot of his comments may have just been this negotiating tact, but that's really what we're waiting to see now. Does he back things up? What's his real priority when it comes down to it?
Well, I think you can. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ian.
Well, I think you can kind of get some hints of what he might be planning on doing by looking at his cabinet positions and his transition team. This is an idea I'm sort of stealing from the podcaster Dan Carlin, but when Obama got elected, you kind of saw he started filling in. He's the hope and change candidate and all this stuff, but he started filling in his transition team and started appointing cabinet members.
What was Ian?
Ian, are you still with us?
Lost Ian.
Lost Ian. All right.
Your mic dropped out again, Ian.
All right. So just to follow up with what the chat's saying, have we seen the mainstreaming of Alex Jones? Alex Jones, just for some background, kind of a conspiracy theorist, very loud Texan gentleman, speaks on the internet, a lot of yelling. I mean, I was a pretty big fan early on. Now he was very much behind Trump. He was very much in favor of Trump. I think Trump might have went on his show. Maybe there's some back and forth there. Is Alex Jones mainstream now? Let's start with Tone, and we'll go through.
I don't know. I don't think so. I really should watch a little more Alex Jones. I just don't have the time.
It's tough. I mean, it's also a lot of the things he says I agree with. I don't like the Federal Reserve, but he has such a Rush Limbaugh kind of style to him, and I think it's kind of accelerated. He's become more of a style person and less of a substance person. So
yeah, I couldn't get into the show. I mean, a lot of his stuff does sound very conspiratorial, but he's also broken a lot of stories. I mean, he's done a lot of good for journalism, right? I mean, some of the stuff is out there, but I give him a pass on that because he does break a lot of good stories and like gets to some of their facts because a lot of that stuff is true. But back to 9/11, look, the truth is going to come out. The documents will be leaked or either they'll be declassified. We will know what's going to happen. I'm just saying that Trump is he's not gonna go there because he doesn't have anything to gain. If Trump exposes 9/11, he's gonna have major civil unrest on his hands. It's gonna be like the Lusitania sinking, where we know like 70 years later that it was all bullshit, or like the Tompkin incident that started the Vietnam War. Like we find out about these things when the people that are most upset are no longer willing to fight about it, right? So that's when we're going to find out about 9/11. I mean, but he will go after especially the corrupt Democrats, and rightfully so. And I hope he does.
Well, and I think
I hope
the
he
important
replaces
thing to do here is
him
to
immediately.
separate Trump the hero from Trump the actual person. Trump the hero may go after 9/11 is probably the dream people are having, but in actual reality, he has a nuts and bolts kind of agenda. He has a limited set of options. Time is limited. We're going to have to see how he chooses to spend that time.
Can you guys hear me now?
Also, I mean, it's a
Yep,
tough,
we can hear you, Ian.
Oh,
it's
cool.
a tough
All right.
battle.
Well, that kind of gets to what I was saying. Go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna make one last point. It's a tough battle. You really like if you're Trump and you want to go after, you got to go after like specific people that you know are corrupt and you can prove that they're corrupt. Going after 9/11, who are you going to go after? You're going to try and go after Bush? You're going to try and go after Cheney? Again, those are going to be very, very difficult things to prove. Everything is going to be very circumstantial. Going after the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation and the conflict of interest in the Justice Department and the conflict of interest at the top of the FBI, these things are much easier to prosecute. They're much easier to settle, even out of court. To get them, like, you might not be able to get them to admit guilt, but you can definitely take these people out of harm. Anyone that was behind 9/11, again, assuming that it was some kind of an inside job, again, that's still an assumption. I don't think any of those people are really responsible for anything today. So what's the point? Why are you going to waste the energy and the resources? Go after people that can still cause damage going forward, not just go after them for the past. You use your resources more wisely, and at the same time, don't cause civil unrest in the streets by exposing something a little too early.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think people are going to be pretty disappointed. Trump supporters at least are going to be pretty disappointed in how he acts. We saw the same thing with Obama. He's supposed to be this hope and change candidate. As soon as he got elected, he started appointing former Clinton administration officials to all his posts. Now we see the same thing with Trump. He's, buddying around with Newt Gingrich and Rudy Giuliani. Just these Republicans from the 90s. And I thought he was supposed to be draining the swamp, but it just seems like he's putting the old water back in. Newt Gingrich, for an example, was he's probably the person second most responsible for NAFTA behind Bill Clinton. He was in charge of the Republican Congress at that time and worked with Clinton to pass NAFTA. So if you're hoping Trump is going to, for an example, get rid of these trade deals, the fact that seems poised to appoint Newt to a high position should be discouraging. And the same thing goes with, going after Hillary Clinton and locking her up. I think all these very populist, right-wing sort of viewpoints are going to be dropped on the wayside as it goes to be more, practical. But, we see the same thing that happened with Obama when he went in 2008. People will go along with that for a while, but eventually people will say, hey, you didn't enact what I wanted you to enact when you're in office, and now I'm going to either not vote for you, or I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, or I'm going to vote for a third party. And I think we're starting to see the seeds of that now. We still got to watch him to see who he's really going to appoint, but his transition team is not making me optimistic that he's actually going to do some of these more extreme things. He's probably going to do half of what he said. If we're lucky, hopefully it's the good half and not the bad half.
Yeah, like, I really care about 3 appointments that he's going to make, maybe 3.5, right? So the following 3 are like, this one's going to show you what Trump is, right? Who is he going to appoint as the court justice? That's a big one, right? So Trump will get to appoint a Supreme Court justice. Trump will get to appoint the next Federal Reserve chairman. We all know his thoughts on Janet Yellen. He can't stand her, right? So who's going to be, that's another appointment. And who is he going to get to head the Justice Department? Those are 3 major appointments. The only other one that I would partially care about is going to be his top economic advisor. One, right? Because he probably thinks he knows everything.
On that economic issue, we are seeing in the chat, they're saying Jamie Dimon for Treasury Secretary. How do you like that, Tone? Does that work?
I mean,
So,
Treasury Secretary is a little bit better than
so
the chair of the Federal Reserve, right? Treasury Secretary
Now, Federal Reserve on
isn't.
Twitter, it's probably a pipe dream, but they want Ron Paul.
okay,
Yeah.
what's going on with the
Not gonna happen.
cabinet right now? Chris Christie was this sycophant who lost very early on in the Republican primaries, and then ingratiated himself to Trump by backing him and helping, him campaign. And he was he was obviously angling for a cabinet position, but he's much too much of an idiot and a cipher for Trump to do that. But so he lobbed him the.
I like Christie.
Hey, Blake. Christie,
Christie's
whatever.
okay, except the Bridgegate issue is
Yeah,
causing
yeah.
a lot of political trouble.
So Trump lobbed him the gig of cabinet transition whatever manager, I don't know what it's called, and he's been shunting over bankster shills to the Trump campaign team, and I don't think that's really working for Trump, and I'm pretty sure that might have been a factor, or was possibly a main factor in the fact that Trump dropped Christie today, which I predicted yesterday. Admittedly, not that much leeway. Last night with my friend, I was talking about it, and I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he drops Christie really soon because of all these appointment suggestions that I've been seeing, where I'm like, I think Trump at least wants to give the appearance of appointing some independent thinkers to his cabinet, even if he doesn't intend, and none of them intend to actually, take action on any of that stuff. I think he wants to avoid the appearance of stacking his cabinet with too many insiders.
That
I actually.
there was an article in The Intercept, I think it was 2 days ago, that was saying his transition team's got a lot of the same lobbyists that have been part of the Clinton campaign. So I hope, I voted third party, but I hope the Trumpites out there keep his feet to the fire on all that, and don't just do what Democrats did once Obama got elected, and all of a sudden, drone strikes are okay, and wars are okay, and spying's okay, and all these things that I thought liberals were supposed to be against all of a sudden became fine once a Democrat was doing it. I hope we don't see the same pattern repeat itself with Trumpites, and all of a sudden corruption and lobbyists are okay if Trump's doing it. But we'll, like everything with Trump, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, let's get Blake. Can we get Blake in here? He just logged out. Everyone seemed
Blake, do you want to just share your opinions on Trump?
Blake. Yeah, we want to know
in favor of Trump, so give you a chance.
All right.
My dog started barking right away, so he's got opinions too. He will be heard. You can't silence the dog vote. They're going to be the most vocal. It's great to see you guys. It's been a long time. I've had a crazy schedule. It's always like the Bitcoin group is the thing that I would prefer to do the most each week if I could do whatever I wanted to. So I miss you guys more than I can explain. But yeah, with the Trump victory and all that stuff, it's very, very funny because I try to avoid just accepting what the mainstream media says in a lot of situations, but they were so adamant that he had no chance at winning that I was like, but I guess there's just no chance at winning. I didn't, think that it was gonna, be possible, and then he ended up winning, which was really just a shock. And now it's come to, well, what's he going to do? Let's see who he appoints to various different cabinet positions. Let's see how he handles the presidency, and that's going to really be the litmus test as far as, is he going to get a whole bunch of banking insiders to fill out his cabinet or not? I think that'll be one of the strongest early indicators of, what his presidency is going to be like, as far as, is it going to be like, modern Trump, as far as kind of saying and doing things maybe to get elected, or is it going to be like Trump from a long time ago when he helped that 3-year-old special needs person with breathing problems in California fly to New York to the tune of like $100,000 on his private jet to save their life? Like, Trump has done some things that are really, really, really amazing in his life, as far as like he had the money to make a situation change and he did it. But is that going to translate into the highly corruptible office of the executive? Is he going to turn into a complete monster, or is he going to, have some of that clout with him? And I think it's a toss-up. It's really interesting to see. I would be much less interested to see how it's going to go one way or the other if it was somebody other than Trump. which is bizarre to say because people dislike him so much. But I think that, if the mainstream media tells me to hate him with every fiber of my being, that it's time to think for myself. And I'm interested to see what's going on. And I think that, as you guys were touching on, if he starts appointing banksters and stuff to his different positions, that'll be a huge indicator of, maybe we're getting the shaft. But if that doesn't happen, hopefully there can be at least some kind of meaningful change from having basically the most liberal conservative ever elected to the office. Let's see, what that's going to be able to do now in our current situation.
Good stuff. We're seeing in the chat, they're saying Trump should appoint Shaq to the cabinet, perhaps Tom Brady, Omarosa, a variety of other reality stars are being proposed for high offices.
If you can get Tom Brady out of the AFC East, appoint him to anything, please.
Good stuff. All right, let's see if there's any more in the chat. Anything else to go on Trump? I mean, we've talked about most of it. Do you think there's any tax implications? Is he going to tax Bitcoin more? Are we going to see any kind of IRS? Is the IRS does he appoint an activist IRS director? What we don't know.
This is my view that Trump isn't all that great for Bitcoin. I mean, if he drops taxes, Bitcoin loses its advantage in the tax sphere.
I would say that a little bit as well. That if he becomes more conservative and the system becomes more of a machine and less of a joke, that's not necessarily great for Bitcoin.
Which, if Trump eliminates AML KYC laws, we don't need Bitcoin. The only reason we need Bitcoin is because of AML KYC laws. These are the laws that I'm against. I don't want Bitcoin. I want to use my dollars. I'm okay with dollars.
I wouldn't say only, but it's a huge value piece.
It seems like a cornerstone of the.
That's the only reason why we're doing Bitcoin. Then,
what the hell, Tone?
More to the revolution than just avoiding KYC laws.
Yeah, come on,
it's really
Tone.
good for my illegal stuff. If I couldn't be doing this much illegal stuff, I'd be unhappy. My name's Tone.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, Tone. You think the Federal Reserve has a defendable monetary policy? I know you're pro, debt creation on the bank level. So I guess why the hell are you on the show again?
Creepers.
Taken down.
Shots fired.
Down.
I like this. This is best.
We're seeing more support for Ron Paul as the Fed chairman. Let's go with the big question.
Fed chairman.
Audit the Fed. Are we going to see an
Treasury.
audit? Are we going to see the inside of Fort Knox? How crazy is this, Trump? I don't think
that would be a great litmus.
No.
That would be an amazing litmus test. If he. But then the thing is, though, is it really good to open that bag of worms and be like, $116 billion in debt needs to be liquidated? We can't deal with this. So, I can see it in both ways. I can't really see it in both ways. I know which way it should go, but I can see why people would see it both ways.
I would go visit the gold. I would be like, I'm into gold. I want to see all this gold we got in Fort Knox. I want pictures of me, selfies with the gold.
Well, then you need to admit to Germany that their gold is gone, and that creates international relation ties and stuff like that. Like, there's so much corrupt stuff going on.
There's no
Trump
gold.
I know there's no gold.
The US government has no more gold.
Around a little bit and be like, I want some accountability, but all at once might be more than we can handle.
Maybe we can set up some mirrors like we did with the rockets for the Russians. Try to make it seem like there's more gold because of the mirrors.
It'll be like when Geraldo Rivera opened up.
As long as the windows aren't broken, I'm about mirrors. No broken mirrors or windows. Well, I want the Keynesianism gone.
The chat seems very conspiratorial today. They all agree there is no gold. So we're not going to audit the Fed. We're not going to go into Fort Knox. Anything else? Let's just go to the total fringes. Roswell investigation. Trump will reveal the existence of space aliens. Trump will reveal the existence of super weapons. Trump will reveal the Tesla research. Are we getting any of that?
Yes.
The Keynesians are putting a lot of eggs in the alien technology basket. So hopefully for the Keynesians, we get some alien technology to make collectivism work.
Hey, let's talk about this seriously. I'm the resident rabbit hole guy, so let me talk about this.
I am serious.
Okay, good.
That was reported.
Okay. So first of all, it's not going to be Trump doing this. I already explained. We've entered the age of leaks. This will be verifiable documents that will show contact with extraterrestrials. And then, so I think that we're going to see, but that'll be after all the government, a lot of government revelations. I think we're going to see
Do you think that it's happened and there's evidence out there that we can discover?
Oh yeah, and it's also a hidden engineering is already known. I mean, obviously there's military programs and such that are developing hidden engineering, but there's also hidden science, and the hidden science.
What is hidden engineering? Because it sounds like something that you know more about than maybe most people do.
Hidden engineering is just devices that are not publicly known, right? So this is this goes from everything from just military weapons and stuff that are just slightly ahead of what we already know about, all the way to super woo-woo stuff like you said, the Tesla papers, for example, that were confiscated from. What?
Tesla was working on an energy weapon. The
Tesla was way ahead of his time, and he used energy vortexes to create what we would call today free energy. It's just simple manipulation of how the world really is. But in my opinion, the suppressed science, Einstein actually figured out the unified field theory in the late 1920s. But it was so shocking for the populace to get this knowledge. But now people, I think, are going to be a bit more ready for it. It'll still be very shocking, but it won't completely collapse world society to know about.
Whoa. So grand unified field theory was perfected in the 1920s. Have we lost the keystones to be able to prove this? Why hasn't it been proven in academia yet?
No. It's not that it's been lost. It's been suppressed. So people have been killed. Scientists get kidnapped. Scientists also get taken to cushy positions in the deep state, and also breakaway space program, breakaway civilization of hundreds of thousands
if I
of
knew
people.
about grand unified field theory and it's proven, I might be able to be bribed if they had a lot of money. But how does this not ever get leaked though? Because I could be bribed.
There's tons of leaks. There are all these people out there, but they get killed. Their reputations get smeared. There's a huge system that's been drawing off all the wealth of the industrialized era into a secrecy program to try to keep it under wraps. And I think that there was possibly a good reason to do that last century, where the shock to the culture would be so great that it would cause mass insanity among the religious populace, traditional populace. But now in the age of the internet, people have access to information. I think it's not going to be as much of a shock. This is my theory. I don't have that much visible evidence, but there is a lot of leakers out there. They just have.
It is fun to think about.
Yeah, it's fun to think about. They only have a minimum of documentary evidence, and that's why I think 2017, 18, 19, 20, and later we're going to see a lot of those leaks come out. But meanwhile, I think that we're going to possibly also see some engineering and science leaks happen very soon, and then we're going to start seeing new technologies entering our culture, and that's going to be very shocking too. It's going to completely upend the energy paradigm that's currently in existence, including clean renewable energy like solar, wind technology that's already known.
I'm excited about the exact same results that you are. I'm more of in the camp of I hope that intellectual property laws get overhauled, and the people that have bought and sat on patents that have been purchased to make fossil fuels more profitable will end up finally trickling out and then replacing a paradigm that we've been stuck in the muck of evolution relative to fossil fuel and explosive machines for way too long. I mean, that should have been a stage that we graduated from long ago, in my opinion. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Let's see, Tony, we have a question about, will gold recover? You said gold was down about 10%. Will it recover in the Trump years?
I don't know. I think conservatives could get lazy. I think it might be a tough call.
Probably not.
It's a tough call, man.
I
They get lazy when they're winning. Anybody that's winning gets lazy. So I don't know about gold recovering.
I think gold has one more push, and then it's over. I've been saying I didn't think that 1,044 was the bottom. We hit that last December. I kept saying gold was going to go into triple digits, 701,000 range. Let's see how bad this current slide is. One more push. There's one more push in gold that will maybe take it to between $3,000 and $5,000, and then it's over.
What do you think if Trump goes on a full protectionist war path, that will affect gold in a positive way? I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, I mean, that would be probably the one route where you'd see gold really surge if, full protectionism idiocy just starts to run rampant with the Trump administration.
I don't see why. I don't see how they're correlated. I just if Trump starts to do some protectionism, how is gold going to help you, right? He is going to drop the tax rate so that
the tax. So you see, the tax rate is going to be more fundamental, and so it'll overcome it.
Right. I mean, once he drops the tax rate, there becomes infinitely better investments than gold. Like gold doesn't pay you anything. That's the problem, you know.
So okay, so
Look,
Tom, let me ask you a
gold-
pointed question. When people said that Trump talking about his interventionist policies was just saying that because he knows that when he lowers the corporate tax rate, he won't have to do that stuff. Do you buy into that when they say that he just said that because he knew it was popular, but he knows he won't have to do it once he lowers the corporate tax rate? It'll resolve itself.
No, I think he will do some of it, right? But I think he'll do more of it in the political realm than the direct economic realm, right? So I think I believe him when he says that, look, I want other countries, you know, paying us for protecting them, right? Like that. But I don't think he's not.
No, I mean economic protectionism as in like value-added taxes and trying to make it so that businesses don't
He's
sue the
not.
borders.
I believe anytime he mentions tariffs or anything, once again we're into a negotiation frame.
That's what I mean.
And
That's
he starts out
protectionism.
right. He's willing to take 50%,
Or the kind of
maybe even
protectionism I'm
30.
talking
You know,
about.
it's a negotiation.
Well, there's more than one kind of protectionism. That's what I mean. I'm talking about that kind.
Right, no, but because it makes no sense, right? I mean, like, look, Europe does value-added tax, which is as ridiculous as the name sounds.
Yeah,
You don't
VAT
add
taxation
any
is not
value
tenable.
by adding a tax. So Trump is going the other way. Instead of adding taxes to goods coming in, he's lowering taxes on goods created here. It makes no sense to, you know, lower taxes here and add taxes on other stuff.
Exactly.
He doesn't really need taxes. So there becomes much better investment opportunities than gold. Also, even if he does go to full-blown protectionism and makes it hard for people to come in and out of the country, which I doubt will happen. But again, this is my saying. Gold became irrelevant the day metal detectors were created. And when the last of these gold pushers, you know, from the 60s and 70s and 80s, the ones that have been screaming, you know, gold is going to 100,000 from, you know, 1971 and up, when the rest of them eventually they're all going to die, right? It's been 40 years and gold hasn't done that, right? So
But gold could have done that. If we had gone full derp mode as far as collectivist policies, gold could have done that. I think gold is good as far as, like, you know, the Russian space program has the manual override on almost everything that they do. I think that that's good to have gold around as that manual override. Is it going to become less significant as the economy becomes stronger? I think that's true. I think it's always good to have around, but I think that it's going to become less and less important to have around as there's other faster options.
Gold's greatest use case got neutered. Metal detectors, right? So gold's greatest use case of moving your value across borders no longer exists. Metal detectors took
But was
that
that
out.
really its
You now
greatest
have
use case?
Bitcoin.
What about the zombie apocalypse? Are we still heading to a breakdown in society where should we be stocking up on food? I'm looking at the chat. They say they're long whiskey, they're long cigarettes. I've always argued those little whiskey bottles and toilet paper, those are your trading implements of the future. A little whiskey bottle shows you only have some whiskey, not a lot. Do we still need gold? Am I going to trade these things? That's the general argument, right?
No. Look, we've had like 6 years of the show Walking Dead. Not once has gold been mentioned, right? And that's correctly so.
I've always wondered who you trade your tokens with and why someone would not just rob you for your gold. I've always wondered this. But.
Yeah, zombie apocalypse comes. I want a hatchet, not a gold bar.
I want a golden hatchet.
Maybe some martial arts, physical fitness. Like, these are the things you're going to need. It's things you can carry with you. You don't need heavy things.
But it's interesting. I mean, is there still a need for the survival kits and stuff under a Trump presidency? Hopefully not. Hopefully it goes in a direction that really makes that stuff more and more and more ridiculous. But as far as we know, I mean, the national debt and the currency is getting really, really thin still. I mean, I wouldn't go and throw away any food stores that you have away yet. I mean, you want to see the way that it goes. I really want to be a cheerleader for Trump and be like, everything's going to be fine. The mainstream shit is great. But you have to look at what's going on.
Can we also, like, just I want to briefly mention the elephant in the room. Like, I'm very worried for Trump's safety in the near future and in a slightly longer future, right? So let's not take it for granted that he's actually going to be president for the next 4 years, right? Because, and I blame the media for this, they really painted Trump as a devil, and he's not.
Yes, they did. They really made people afraid. Like, the old people I know are all afraid.
Do you really think that Trump is in a greater threat than Obama? I heard the same argument in 2000. Certainly Obama's an African-American man. There's a lot of people that don't like that. You think Trump is in a greater threat?
Yes.
I mean, I met old people that were convinced that Obama was like Manchurian candidate Muslim sent to destroy our country,
Well,
and
he was
that
grown in a test
everyone
tube.
is going to be put into FEMA camps by the end of his first term and stuff like that. I mean, this is the same like hyperbolic sky is falling shit we get every time someone's elected. He is. I mean, the media portrayed him a certain way, but he didn't do himself any favors. Basically, South Park's portrayal of him as Mr. Garrison saying "fuck them all to death" isn't really that far off from like the actual things he said about immigrants and Islamic people or whatever. So.
Wait,
I mean, the media hasn't given him exactly like an easy go at it, but he hasn't helped himself either, is what I'm saying.
When did Trump say that? I must have missed that one.
Trump has called for a ban on Muslims. He's spoken out against Mexican immigrants,
on
calling
Muslim
them rapists and thieves.
Not on
forth.
this is all on immigration, not on the people themselves.
Yeah,
Just
it's got to be framed around immigration. One is around illegal immigration, and then the other one is around voluntary immigration. Having voluntary immigration from people that may or may not really, really, really hate our homosexual population and/or our female population for not being conservative enough is a legitimate risk. Is it popular to say? No. Am I going to win any points for saying that? No. But as far as safety goes, I mean, it's at least something that can be addressed.
We do have a general disagreement with Trump on whether Islam is the source of terrorism, whether it's a religious terrorism. That is a debate that we're having. He wants to ban all Muslims, according to his speech.
Thomas, it's kind of, I think it's kind of irrelevant what the cause is. Just look at the literal effects, provable effects that have happened in Europe. There's a rape epidemic currently happening in Europe, and I would not be surprised at all if next year we start to see a big reaction from the peoples that migrated there before the migration from the South and from the Middle East. Against this huge culture clash. The EU authorities took a huge risk bringing in hundreds of thousands of people into a completely different culture. And they're just going wild, of course, and they're lying about their age, and it was to be expected from desperate people who don't have a home, don't have food, don't have money. They come into a new culture, and the young men, of course, are going to go crazy. They don't have anything else to do.
I don't want to criticize the culture. I'm not saying that you're doing it at all. I don't want to criticize the culture or say that any culture is bad, blah, blah, blah. I do want to say that certain cultures are incompatible. Certain oil and water cultures are going to be really, really, really hard to, and especially when there's going to be very, very, very self-oriented, individualist women, and then a culture that says that's really, really, really something that's harmful and needs to be quashed. Like that's going to get really, really hairy, really, really quick when you merge those two types of ideologies together. Where women saying, I have the right to do everything that a man can do, and how dare you, say anything about that, which I can respect and relate to. And then people saying, in certain other countries, the women need to not get uppity and misbehave and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, this is not going to end well. This is going to be a really, really, really hard thing for these people to agree on and talk about peacefully. So,
I think we're getting away from the point. We have an idea of a religion test or excluding people based off of their religion. It's not
really religion. It's how do you feel about X group of people doing X group of things, and if people reacting.
It also becomes more confusing when religions.
My point is that it's a slippery slope. That once you start making a test about religion and trying to ban Islamic people.
No, not about religion, about behavior.
Well, whatever you want to. If we're basing it off of what Trump said, which is that he wants a religion test to make sure people can't come into the country, first of all, it's going to be ineffective because people can just lie.
That's
but
I agree.
No, guys.
But these laws. Let me finish real quick, Tone. In 10 years, if the economy keeps getting worse and worse and worse, how long will it be? Is it really out of the realm of possibility that we have a Westboro Baptist 2.0 that actually takes their extreme views to violence? And then what are we going to do then? Have a test that checks, if you're a fundamentalist Christian? All these things that we apply to one group of people will eventually be applied to all of us, because that's what always happens.
Right away.
Just like with the laws that they put up against the racketeering laws that were supposed to be against mafia members. Now they're used against every single criminal. anything we do to one group of people is going to be applied to all of us, and that's why we have to be very careful about what we apply to certain groups of people.
I totally agree. You cannot call out individuals. You have to say objectively, if you treat or think about people in a certain way that's going to violate their negative rights, that's bad.
Think about people.
It has to be apodictic as shit. You cannot mention specific, trends that change and morph. It's got to be behavior based.
Think about people. I mean, this is. I mean, we're already in such authoritarian territory with this country and around the world. I mean, if we explicitly going into thinking, I mean, we're already there with the attacks on the Second Amendment. With like the political correctness bullshit now. Forcing public bathroom owners to allow, biological males.
Yeah. Changing rules on private property is really pushing the bounds, even if you think it's for a really good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And
go ahead, Tom. Let me jump back in for a second. I actually like the fact that Trump doesn't give a shit about a lot of this political correctness, which is good.
Me too.
Look, I thought Trump made this very clear. He just wants better background checks. He wants to just do better background checks. That was his big thing. And I agree with him. You need better background checks,
especially when people are coming that say they're kids that are not.
Well, our security apparatus, like the TSA, is completely out of control. What we need is Israeli-style security, where they talk to you at the gate, they talk to you at the line, they talk to you at the next gate. You've met 3 agents by the time you get to the airplane. That's that also soft security.
I've been like singled out and like every time I fly back into America, I've been like taken out of line, taken to the side, being asked a million questions, and it's hard for me to answer because they ask me what I do for a living, and I honestly don't know. So I always give them like a different random answer because I don't know what I do for a living. I don't really do much, yet I'm always freaking busy. So it's hard for me to explain to these guys what I do for a living and be consistent. But I always get taken out of line. I always get my bags looked at. Not always, but I say crossing back into the U.S. And I have no idea why I'm getting singled out. And their biggest problem is because I travel with so little bags. Because I'm so used to traveling, I never check luggage. It's just a huge annoyance for me. So I pack enough clothes for 5 to 6 days. And if I travel for 2 months in a row, I'll just do laundry. You can do that. Especially, I love Asia. They'll do it every day for you. Just leave your shirt and then come back the next day, and it's all there, hanging in your closet. And so Trump just wants better background checks, and he was very, very clear about this. Also, to know Germany, I actually spent a little time with. I'm here in Russia. I was here for a Bitcoin conference. Contrary to what people are saying about Russia and Bitcoin, even though it is kind of frowned upon. And there was a girl I was hanging out with, and she's from Germany. And I asked her, we didn't really get into the topic of the Muslim immigration there, but I have an open invitation to go to Germany, and I'm actually thinking that offer, mostly because it's hard for us to believe, like none of us here have been to Germany, so we don't really know what the hell is really going on there, right? I try to avoid Europe like the plague. I don't really want to go to any country that uses the euro, but I need to see it for myself. It's like my whole family was telling me, oh, you're going to Russia, be careful, this and that. Try not to let them know that you're American. Try not to speak English. And in case wondering what the hell am I going to speak, if my family's telling me not to speak English, I do speak fluent Russian, right? So that kind of helps me being in Russia. But it's really not like that. I mean, you walk around the street, nobody cares. Other people are speaking English. It's not really a problem. So you really got to go to these countries to get a real idea, and you can't just stay at the hotel. You got to try and rent an apartment. You got to live like a local for a week to really know. Now, the stories that I do here, that families
got to live in an authentic guest house.
Always try to do. Now, it's hard not to believe the stories when you have like there's way too many male adults from the Muslim countries coming in. They should have made a better restriction. It should be like, it's more open to women, and it's more open to especially women with young children. You can have like hard to have a cutoff date because it's hard
Well,
for
and that's how it passed popular support. They were told, everybody was promised up and down that it was going to be suspended, and that the women and children needed refuge. And who's going to turn away women and children? And then they brought all these people in, which is so terrible for that lie to have been.
But that's because they didn't put in the border controls to check for this.
Oh, I totally agree.
It's hard. It's hard to draw like a line. Like it's like, oh, children, but how are these children? Why would they prove their age? It's hard to do. So the cutoff line would be like women with children, children under age 10, let's say, right? If you're under age 10, if you're obviously under age 10, you can come in. If you're not obvious under age 10, then you better prove that you're under age 10 or you can't come in, right? I mean, their problem is going to be could have done it in a much better way, but and it was interesting what she said, because she is from Germany, and then she's like, well, here in Germany, we had a big shortage of, let's say, people that will clean your house, people that will do like the low-end labor.
That's because their population is so low.
Right. And they're like, and I'm like, well, if you drop the minimum wage laws, able to get people to do this, dirty labor. And then she's like, no, it's kind of been grown out of our culture. And when she said that, I'm like, you're right. That actually makes sense. That kind of makes sense. But again, there's a difference between Muslim males coming in their early 20s and females with young children. These are very, very different things. And it should be obvious what a young child is. And if it's not young, then they need to prove the age of that child. I mean, I am reading the same articles everybody else is, that there's 14-year-olds in fourth, fifth grade, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, it would be fun. I would like to do it, but
unless you're there for yourself to actually see it, I really try. I mean, I also talk about it, but now I'm being a little careful. I might end up going to Germany just to see things for myself. Same thing with Sweden. They're having insane issues as well. I had an open invitation to go to Sweden, but our schedules didn't match. I really like Rick Falkwell, the Pirate Party founder out in Sweden.
Falkvarge.
Let me get in here real quick. A couple things about what you said, Tone. One, you said it was very clear that Trump just wanted, stricter background checks, but that's just not true at all. He, like everything else with Trump, he wasn't very clear. He had a lot of conflicting opinions on his own plans, but he did advocate for religion tests. He did at one time advocate banning all immigration from Muslim countries. I mean, these are things that he actually did. He may have backed away from them at some point. But ultimately, I mean, why are we so scared of these immigrants? I mean, we're the country that beat the Nazis, that beat the Soviet Union. I'm not scared of an influx of Islamic
it's
refugees. They form gangs or whatever.
Where's the value proposition? It's not fear. It's how do we benefit from it?
Well, of course we benefited from it.
Hey guys,
more immigrants are more people buying stuff. We have a slowing birth rate in this country. I've said it on the show before. We're eventually going to need immigrants to reverse that slowing birth rate and give us more buyers.
But that's if we continue with collectivist policies, the birth rates remain low.
No, you need birth rate for capitalist policies for this.
But they automatically go up.
Where you always have to have more this infinite profit model needs. You need more buyers every year than you had the year before in order for it to make it work. Go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm gonna jump back in for a second. It's like 3:30 in the morning here, so I'm gonna get going. It was a good discussion, but I'll leave you to it.
All right, thanks for being here, Tone.
Always great to see you, Tone. It's always a pleasure.
Good job. Thanks, man.
Good to see you back here. Bye-bye, guys.
Have fun in Russia.
All right, so there's been some
Say hi to Snowden.
Snowden.
There's been some funny comments in the chat. I just want to go through a couple of them. Julian says, I was asked on my entry into Australia last month at customs, do you understand why I am searching your luggage today? And then Julian says, just a note for all, for speedy transit through customs, the answer to justify your government payroll is not the right answer.
Oh,
That's
that
good
is pretty great.
funny stuff. I've also seen they're talking about which kind of refugees are okay. They say it's women and children, young children, dogs and cats are not allowed unless they're Christian.
I'd like to
a lot of good
call
jokes
out.
going in the chat.
I'd like to call out Chuck Gaffert again. He's joined our chat many times for the live broadcast, and he describes this in the context of regulation and how laws are meant to affect and control the populace. Here's the progression. Terrorism goes to drugs, goes to parking tickets.
All right, and I do have one more issue about Trump. I want to talk about the potential for hate, and I'm worried about the hate that may have already been unleashed. I don't know if you guys have been seeing on the media and Twitter. We've seen a lot of stories of people, people of color, other people with hijabs, people lesbian, gay, bi. There's a lot of letters now. LGBTQT. I'm not sure.
When they added the Q is when I was like,
They added the Q. It's been
down.
difficult since then.
I had to write down the Q.
The original thing was fine, and I include all the other groups, but there's been some scariness. There's been some hate. Do you guys believe that this is going to continue? Is there like a certain section of the population that is somehow now emboldened by Trump, and where you used to just like look at a pretty woman, now you would yell something horrible, and you maybe used to look at, these people don't like immigrants or whatever, but now they wouldn't just look, they're going to yell something horrible. Is that something?
I'm already seeing lots of reports of that in the media, but of course they love to glom onto things like that and make a huge deal out of them. I mean, is it true that that's going to be a movement if it happens 11 times a day in a country of 350 million? I don't know. Well, maybe.
Was Trump encouraging this in the primaries? Is he not encouraging it now? Do we think that is he going to call out against this? Is he going to encourage it more slightly? I mean, what do you think?
I think he's going to stay out of the fray and let things play out as they will.
Well, I went to the bank, and the woman that was working there didn't do exactly what I wanted to right away. So I grabbed her by the pussy. I said, "You listen to me. We have Donald Trump now." And then she was like, "You're right. We have a new leader. It's time for me to be submissive to the patriarchy." And I was like, "Thank you. I mean, that's the least you could possibly do." No, I mean, I think that it's a lot of hyperbole. People were like, Barack Obama is a Saudi terrorist that was born on the moon, and now people are like, Trump is the worst person ever. I think that the person to blame here is the media. I mean, the media has made Trump into such a monster, and are some of the people that support Trump really, really wacky? Oh God, yeah. I mean, any group that's as large as, we got two political parties or we have two sexes, like those are some pretty large groups. So to find some people that are, completely off their rockers, and that's like, there's a lot of Democrats or anarcho-communists or whoever that are, rioting right now and destroying stuff. Do I think that that's the majority of Democrats? Absolutely not. That would be ridiculous for me to think of that. And to think of the majority of Trump supporters as racist or hateful, it is absurd. I mean, I'm not, afraid that Trump has won, and I have a special needs child. And, if anybody would have the right to be like, oh, it's going to be scary, I think it would be somebody with a child with a disability. So, I mean, if I'm not scared, I would really call on you guys to try to do what you can to try to pull your stuff together. And if you're a liberal, argue for liberal policies using logic and reason. If you're a conservative, do the same. Cut back the emotionality, no violence, and we'll be fine.
Yeah,
Ian, what's your thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to just echo that. I mean, that was very well said, Blake. I know someone in the chat called me Ian DiMartino Soros. I probably am more liberal than your average.
I've seen the paychecks from Soros. Ian were hanging out one day, and I was like, "What's this? We're gonna have a problem." We had a fist fight. We worked it out.
But I'm usually in favor of protest. Just in general, I feel like the government has been screwing us over so long, and when it's Tea Party and then when it was Occupy, I was just happy to see people out on the streets and arguing. But
yes.
This recent rush of protests, it just seems so reactionary. I just want everyone to calm down, just accept the election, and as soon as Trump does something authoritarian, which I hope he doesn't, but if he does do the things that they're scared of, then I'll be the first one out there protesting with them. But protesting now, it just seems so counterproductive against,
especially when it should have been done when Hillary stole it from Bernie. Don't you think?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, what are they complaining about? They should have been complaining about
I think the protests are a reaction. These people are afraid and they don't know what to do. And I do think that as we look at the media, not even the mainstream, but more like Facebook, people like Michael Moore, we're starting to see a Democratic plan come together. They're going to basically attempt, hopefully, to turn themselves into an opposition, which is what the Republicans did to Obama. The Republicans were there every day trying to impeach him. They had, I don't know, 60 or 70 votes to try to repeal Obamacare. I love the idea of the opposition. I believe that if you really support your ideas, you should continue fighting for them after the election.
Absolutely.
Is it a permanent campaign? Is that a horrible thing? I think Mao would say something about permanent campaign.
I would say that anybody that thinks that that freedom and apathy are things that can work together are just you're clueless. I mean, with every 2 parts apathy come 1 part despair, and if you think that 1 part despair isn't coming, you're in for a fucking rude awakening. So I apologize the language, but you have to care and constantly debate and be sharp on the things that you believe, and if not, don't expect anybody else to fight for you. I mean, it's vitally important.
And remember, the Democrats, while the Electoral College victory for Trump is huge, the actual margin of victory is about 0.01%. It's 120,000 votes in the Great Lakes region would have flipped this election. So he's not that far out ahead.
Yeah, I grew up, or went to high school or whatever during the Bush administration, and things seemed so simple to me back then. We had this Republican president that was doing wars, and then we had all the Democrats on the side fighting against it. Then Obama got elected, and all of a sudden war was great. So, and everyone that was anti-war became a neoliberal, which is basically just a neocon that supported gay marriage.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
and so I am going to be a little bit happy to see all these Democrats come back over to my side. And all of a sudden, when I went to protest the wars while Obama was in office, we had about 10,000 people on the street. During the Bush administration, we had they had, because I was too young to convince my parents to bring me to one of those, like 100,000 people in the street. So hopefully, we're going to see Democrats become actual liberals again. And, you can agree or disagree with liberal policies. I think it's everyone can probably agree it's better if we have, one side, especially on the topic of foreign policy, we have such like a bipartisan consensus on foreign policy when the Democrats in office, because you got them causing the war, and you got the Republicans who are always traditionally in favor of war. If now that it's going to be Trump's running these wars, hopefully we'll actually get some people out in the street.
I want to jump in for a second. They're not traditionally in favor of wars. I think that your slice of life where you've been alive, that's very, very, very true, but it's not been historically accurate.
Well, yeah, I mean the Republicans of today, since
very war hawkish, yes.
Yeah, since the Bush administration, 2001.
I think we're going to see more of that. I think we'll see less. Let's see. I'm getting distracted by the chat.
I love engaging with the chat. I think that's some of the best stuff that we produce.
Yeah, but I think we're about running out of stuff. Let's see. Hawkish. What are we going to do? No, I think it's important to have an opposition. I think it's important to fight this thing.
I think the Democrats...
I see some of the things in the chat real quick. I just want to say I agree. Yeah, Clinton was super hawkish. Bush and Obama were equal on the foreign policy, and that's my point, is that when a Democrat does it, a Democratic president does it, Democratic voters just ignore it. So now that it's a Republican doing it, hopefully
who voted for peace with Russia will hold Trump accountable. Basically, that's probably the takeaway. Definitely, is that hopefully, whereas we saw some of the liberals really, really fold in that regard, hopefully all of the conservative in any way people that voted for Trump that wanted peace with Russia, if anything, kicks off that triggers that to not be the case. Hopefully they hold him accountable as possible. I don't think anybody would disagree with that for sure.
Okay, I think I remember what I was going to say. When Ian was talking, he was talking about neoliberalism, and I really think we've seen the death of that. Neoliberalism was the idea that the Democrats could fight the conservatives at their own game, that they could buddy up to corporations, that they could take the large donations, that they could support things like NAFTA and TPP, these huge trade deals, that the Democrats could be everything to everybody. And I think we're seeing a return to progressive politics, perhaps even socialist politics like Sanders, whereas I think Trump pushed the Republicans out the other way. So maybe we're seeing a true expansion of our political discussion out to the edges, and maybe we'll find more solutions out there because they are more they're more edged, they're more real, they're more grounded. Whereas we've been trying this middle way of everything in the middle. What do you think, Gabe?
Repeat the question.
Is it the end of neoliberalism? Is progressivism coming back? Are we going to see a true battle of ideas between the extreme right and the extreme left and have maybe a better conversation? We had this conversation before with Al Gore and Ralph Nader in 2000, where he said Bush and Gore are the same. He said the two parties are the same.
Right.
And
Gabe, can I weigh in really quick?
Go ahead.
I'm bursting at the seams.
I have a feeling we're going to say the same thing, which is you're completely ignoring the other axis of the political spectrum, which is that between. No, go ahead then.
I was gonna say. I think that you're definitely on a course to exactly what's right. I think the information age is going to lead a lot more people to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. We're going to continue to find that party and that amalgamation. And as people wake up and they read more, that's going to be the big thing that happens. As people become way more socially liberal, they become way less intolerant of things that rustle their jimmies and that trigger them, and that they become way more fiscally responsible and being like, we can track all this stuff on the internet and with blockchains or whatever. We can see if you're commingling funds and doing all kinds of stuff which wastes money. And I think that is the direction of the future, and I'm really excited for that.
Well, I think that's going to take a number of years. I mean, as we're seeing now, the shock and appalling feelings of appalling emotions that people are experiencing now that believe the mainstream narrative is the beginning of a massive shift in the American culture and in the American mindset. And I think part of that, as I was just saying, is the recognition of the other, of the second axis of political. You could say there's even more than two, but certainly the second axis would be that between authoritarianism and freedom, or liberty, as they call it in political discourse. And we're seeing that emerging now all over the Western world, which has been ignored in the era, as we say here on the West Coast, in the era of the nation state, the giant nation state whose existence is enabled by the industrial revolution, and whose complete raison d'etre was supported mostly by economies of scale. When you decentralize information flows and the rest of society, as we are in the process of doing over the last couple decades, that those economies of scale that are geography based quickly begin to collapse. And we're seeing the cracks in the edifices of the nation state structure for world society, and it's really surprising for people that weren't prepared for that, like with Brexit. The Brexit was part of a seismic shift in British politics, where the left-right paradigm of Labour and Conservative is breaking down, because they've been the same for 20 and 30 and 40 years. They've been planned by the same central planners, the deep state, and the shadow government here in the US, for example. So I think we're seeing a rapid shift, the very beginnings of the rapid shift down from the authoritarian toward the liberty side of the spectrum, and that's causing seismic shifts in both political parties. We saw a complete outsider candidate take the Republican candidacy this year. We saw the outsider candidacy on the Democratic side absolutely leading by huge amounts, drawing massive crowds, while Clinton had groups of 150 people at elementary schools.
Those were massive crowds for an elderly socialist.
Elderly socialist who's
Bernie is not a candidate, but his ideas were
not very charismatic. He's a decent speaker, but not very charismatic, not very likable at all. He's just he's an outsider, and he like Trump, he was correctly diagnosing the issues, or many of the issues that real people are experiencing in their daily lives, unlike the fantasy media Clinton Obama narrative of recovery since 2008, rather than absolute depression since 2008. And I think we're ready for our next leg down, just like in 1937. I'm very much hoping that we don't have a world war to try to pull us out, or to try, as a result of the depression.
We haven't had a conservative apparatus since about 1928, as far as the House, Senate, and executive all being conservative. But what a lot of people are talking about right now, which I think deserves a lot of attention, even like Trump is president, which is good, but like the Podesta scandals and the pizza parties and the stuff that came out from the liberal establishment, like if the liberals thought that they needed to clean house a little bit, like that's good, and they were really they were smart to know that. But the extent to which that was necessary, and the extent to which extremely malfeasant stuff to the part of to the point of degeneracy that I cannot even imagine that was going on with the leaks that were exposed. That is terrifying, and
really that's just the very beginning.
Yeah,
this is just the very tip of the iceberg. And I'd like to quickly correct you in your terminology. I really hope that we can see this in our society, that we move away from this term liberal, because liberal is derived from liberty, which is freedom. Which
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, we should call it what it is.
Neo-leftists, neo-democrats.
It's leftist / socialist / communist, authoritarian speaking. It's the upper left of the political chart as they draw it.
I 100,000% give you that. That's absolutely what I meant to say. And these people, when you uncover what happens to those that are given power and the thought that they've won the ideological war, then they start having pizza parties where that looked very to the point where when pizza party means, who's bringing the pizza to the pizza party means like who's bringing the kids, and the party is going to be something that maybe the kids don't enjoy, like that.
Right, the child prostitution allegations.
That makes me furious, to the extent that like that's not happening somewhere far off or whatever. There's people that are supposed to be running stuff in the West that are sending emails that are purposely obfuscating children.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
We've been seeing drips and drabs of the child of the what's it called, pedophilia allegations and proof coming out of the Catholic Church for 20-30 years, and then there was slight inklings of that before that, and then we've seen tons and tons of proof of that endemically in the Catholic Church, and now over the past 5 years we've been seeing black and white proof of that in the UK elite circles. And now finally we're seeing the evidence for child prostitution, endemic, systemic child prostitution, child slavery, sex slavery, child, what do they call it? Sex trafficking and pedophilia allegations. Now we're starting to see the black and white proof of that. And I guarantee you we're going to see huge revelations on that particular score, which is like the worst. That's the bottom of the barrel as far as social attitudes go for these power mongers and power brokers at the top.
Oh, definitely. And people that are like, are you willing to go to war and die and sacrifice your life for rumors of chemical weapons in Iraq? It's like, no, but am I willing to go to war and die in terms of like making it so that people can't molest children? Yeah, absolutely. You want to go toe to toe with me in terms of that being the end result? You're going to lose. That makes me so angry on a fundamental level that anybody would just ever do that. That it's just, you go to prison and you've done stuff like that, and the other prisoners that are in there that feel guilty because they can't be parents of their stuff, they'll cut your balls off and flush them down the toilet. And I don't
that anger
crimes are so despicable. And I'm not a fan of corporal punishment. I don't want to hurt people, but those types of crimes make me just see red.
We're gonna see that, exactly that anger that you're expressing and feeling there. We're gonna see that spread like a wildfire throughout the world population,
and we've seen inklings of this. I forget his name, but there's a television presenter in the UK who was molesting children for about 40 years. Everyone covered it up. Everyone seems to be in on it, and I think all of these things. Let's take a step back. What we're talking about here is the WikiLeaks exposure of the DNC emails. Well, we only got one side. We didn't get the RNC. We could have gotten both. Next time, maybe we'll get both. I think Gabe's right. We're going to see more leaks.
I think
we're going to see more hacks.
Yeah.
Can I bring
I got to bring up really quick this David Seaman here. David Seaman and I had a huge falling out. I'm not a huge fan of David Seaman, but I do have to, even though I'm so mad at him and he's not the greatest person ever, he did such a great job as far as uncovering various different corrupt pieces and having so many of his fan base mad at him. Like, do I think that people should go out and like donate money to David Seaman and stuff like that? Like, no, maybe not. But I can say, even though though I had a fight with this person, it was amazing to me the amount of effort that he put into uncovering all these different things that the other media didn't. So even somebody that I think maybe isn't the greatest person, being that much objectively better than the mainstream media, that's something that we have to just look at and be like, wow, that's, the media has really, really failed us. And
well,
me get in
Ian,
here
I
real quick.
have a really short point to make, and then
Okay,
I'd love to
yeah,
hear
go
what
ahead.
you have to
Mine's
say.
kinda long.
Just quickly on the RNC, the WikiLeaks claimed that they were very open and they did call publicly for any Republican leaks that anyone would like to pass them. In my opinion, as far as the RNC, I think the Republican Party was a little ahead of the Democratic Party because so many, so many more individualists among the Republicans. So I think the collapse of the Republican Party as a viable political arm in the American political landscape was a little ahead of the Democrats. So I think that they've been in disarray for several years. And so they really haven't there's nothing there to leak because they're kind of without power. So the real power brokers have left Reince Priebus and all these idiots behind a little bit longer ago.
Yeah,
totally. Go ahead, Ian. You had a point.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I just wanted to go real back to the as neoliberalism is dead, discussion that we were having a little bit earlier. I think what we might see, especially if Trump doesn't follow through on his promises and gets his supporters angry. We always talk about politics on this line of left and right, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think if Trump doesn't keep the people that put him in office happy, I think what we might see is a bottom to top revolution, because he had a lot of very populist ideas that appeal to the right. Bernie had a lot of populist ideas that appeal to the left, and the one thing that I think I'm different than a lot of you guys here, but I think the one thing we can all agree on is we don't want corruption in government. And that there's a ton of corruption in government right now. So I can foresee a scenario where maybe socialists and libertarians work together temporarily to get corruption out of government, and then we can argue over how we want to bring this country this way or that way. But get to the point where the country's actually working for us, where the government's working for us, and then we can argue about what we want that government to do. But how it is now, with lobbyists and everything else, none of us are going to get what we want because they aren't listening to us.
Ian, I think that's a pipe dream. The idea of the hardcore leftist and hardcore libertarians working together, I think once again that you're mixing two axes. So if you have leftists who are maybe more toward the freedom side of the paradigm, certainly, yeah, I think you're right. You're absolutely right about different bridges being made in the electoral landscape in the United States and around the world. Absolutely, and I think that's part of that shift of political positioning. Absolutely, but this idea of taking away corruption from government is completely unrealistic, totally a pipe dream, has absolutely no historical or logical basis or philosophical basis. The idea of government,
you're not going to get a government without corruption, but there's a certain amount of corruption that a government can take and still function. When you get completely drenched in corruption, it's completely different than if there's a little bit of corruption, which of course you're going to have. But
government, by definition,
government that listens to its voters and have their policies dictated to them by voters, and a government that is dictated by their contributors rather than the voters.
Ian, that's a pipe dream. You'll never
but
see
we
that.
had restrictions against campaign donations.
Yes, restrictions.
We used to have a lot of great laws, but the Supreme Court saw to that.
Yeah, here's the thing. Restrictions and all those laws don't do shit. You force people and you coerce people to do stuff, and it doesn't work.
Okay,
There's
so
always ways around it.
Let me ask you this:
Which laws? Hold on.
The beginning of the Roman Republic was just as corrupt as the end of the Roman Republic. There's obviously different levels of corruption within government.
Yes,
but there's laws. Which laws are we talking about? It's material here.
Hold on. It's not material yet because I am making the contention that that it's impossible to run a government that doesn't have corruption at its core. just because the populace was happier, you can have more and less corruption, but corruption is the basis for government. And I think we're going to see Bitcoin and the internet are the beginnings of this new system of governance, not government, not an established body that has a coercion on that has a monopoly on coercion and violence, but instead systems that are set up and voluntary.
And no systems were ever set up voluntarily through the old legacy government?
No, they weren't. You couldn't, because we didn't have the tech for it. You had to send letters by horseback.
But not even way back in the day. Not even way back in the day, as far as a way to have habeas corpus and to make individualism.
No, only pre-agriculture.
That's
no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just asking for
crypto land. But we have to. We're not at a point where we can make a blockchain government and have it function. We're not at a point where everything is going to be run on the internet. We might be getting there, but we have to deal with the situation we have now, which is
why we're not there yet?
Reduce corruption in government, and not just.
Why are we not there yet?
Hey, Ian, you just dropped out. I want to hear what you were saying.
Me too.
I dropped out again, but yeah, that's true. You're right. It's certainly not instant. This is going to take decades. What I'm talking about, but I just want to make sure that people aren't deluding themselves that it's possible to eradicate corruption from government. And I do agree that lessening corruption is a good near-term goal.
I don't know, but saying that it's impossible to eradicate corruption from government may be true. It may be giving a lot of information, but also we could try to eradicate some corruption through government by making it an individualist, even playing field, instead of trying to make it some kind of a one-up virtue signal contest.
That's absolutely true, and we're already well on our way with Bitcoin. We've got a solution to the monetary conundrum that has plagued our society since 1972 or 71 or even 45 or even longer, actually since the establishment of the Federal Reserve in this country. So we've got
since Nixon and Woodrow Wilson. Let's see what Ian said. I think he got
yeah, exactly. So yeah, but I think we're well on our way, and it's the monetary side that they're able to draw infinite wealth, near infinite wealth, trillions from the populace now, and that will stop, and then we're going to see a lot of corruption fall away, like you're saying.
Let's see.
I think you guys are pretty staunch libertarians. Let me ask you this: would you be willing to put aside some differences with the left in order to let's say get campaign contributions out of our elections or something like that?
No, not ever. And this is why. The political belief system that I hold is not based on anything except for is it apodictically and incontrovertibly so that you
What's
can
apodictically?
It means beyond argument. It means binarily. It means that it's something that's true
logical,
as opposed to not. Yeah, it's very close to incontrovertible. So like economics should be concerned with apodictic statements, not with a whole bunch of phooey. So what libertarianism is what negative rights and positive rights can be held in balance and make the entire system work, which liberties versus entitlements are actually mathematically tenable through a system of logic that doesn't take anything else into consideration. So when you take that really anal retentive requirement for stuff, Ian, it pains me to say no, we will not work with the left at all. It will be complete gridlock. There's not going to be any.
So let's say there's a Bernie Sanders, Ron Paul unity ticket.
Ian,
you're not on board with that?
I don't think he will be. But here's what
I might support it marginally. I might vote in self-defense because something else is worse. But at the end of the day, no, it's absolutely impossible.
I think these are two strange bedfellows. It's like oil and water.
No, I don't think so, because
but they different ways to get there.
Well, here's the thing. It's once again, imagine this square of a political spectrum with authoritarian at the top, calling the shots, and liberty at the bottom, and then left and right. If you're talking about a lot of Bernie supporters are going to be bottom left, right? They're going to want people not to have to starve to death. They're going to want people to be helped, want people to be open-minded, but they don't want too much authoritarian government. They want people to stay out and maybe just protect a little bit against a couple of really bad, environmental abuses or something. So I think that you have to just take this sort of chart as a shorthand and maybe say, okay, yeah, sure, maybe some people at the bottom, the liberty-oriented people of both left and maybe conservative libertarians or traditional American large L libertarians might find some common ground in coming years for sure. But I think it's important, I don't think it's important. My personal view on the matter is that a lot of the motivation for the left can be taken on board and should be taken on board into a lot of thinking in the future. The motivation being helping people, making sure to move society in a direction that reduces human suffering, but we have to do it in ways that don't utilize coercion for it.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
think
problem.
that it's absolutely their job to research and utilize non-eugenic forms of making the world better. And what does that mean? It just generally means free markets. It generally means that people can say what they want. You can't throw somebody in prison for attacking the president. You can buy and sell what you want to. And that looks pretty good to me. I don't know. I mean, like, I know there's a lot of extra rationalizations that people can make to make that situation look bad, but at an Occam's razor kind of viewpoint, it's pretty rock solid.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty strong in favor of workers' rights. I mean, you see what happened with the Gilded Age. When there weren't any. I don't think we should have like children in coal mines and stuff. But yeah, I definitely agree that there's definitely like two sides of the left.
Upton Sinclair, the jungle.
There's the one side of the left that wants to control everyone's actions, and they're going to get on Twitter and try to get you fired because you said something about Caitlyn Jenner or whatever. But the kind of left that I kind of look up to and stuff is like the Abby Hoffman left, who like to do crazy things and make people uncomfortable. And hopefully we'll see some sort of return to that. But it's all about, you guys are talking about how liberal it comes from liberty and stuff.
Yeah, the left is an orgy of ideas and arguments at all times. When you lose that, you're fucked. And I think that's. Yeah, right. I'm sorry for the language, but
I think we've gone past the language barrier on this, even before you got on the.
Good.
On here.
All right, so I do have one more Trump-related question, so we can circle back and do one more round of Trump coverage. Now, many have talked about Russia's influence in the election, the hacking of the Democratic National Committee, the WikiLeaks scandals, and the potential for Russia to gain by their closeness and perhaps even friendship with Trump. But let's shift Russia to the side and let's look at China. Does China gain from this election? Is this China's huge victory? China is now in a position to lead the world forward on climate change. Trump is going to be very anti the climate change regulations, etc. He's going to roll a lot of that back. We're going to have to actually rely on China to lead the world on what used to be the U.S.'s progressive issues. Is China going to lead the world on trade? Is China going to lead the world on climate change? Is this China's victory? And I'm going to give everybody a chance to talk. So we'll start with Blake, though. So China and Russia and Trump, that general topic.
China and Russia and Trump. I mean, this is going to be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of information required about America, about Russia, about China, about individualism, about collectivism, about economics. There's a lot of information that goes into this. Let's talk about Russia first. Russia survived the collapse of the USSR. Russia has been through lots and lots and lots of stuff. And people don't like Putin. And I understand why people don't like Putin. But people that do like Putin, I understand why they like him too. Russia is basically a huge, infinite expanse of land that can't even get the resources together to tie itself together and really be a cohesive state. So what Putin has done is he's been like, we need to have the most banana republic liberal economic policies ever, and you can all do that. And then once, like, if there's a factory or a company in a certain town that starts to really enslave the people and really like do bad stuff, then Putin comes in and tells them, hey, unless you want to end up on the KGB most wanted list, you gotta operate differently. I mean, is that great? No. Is that optimal? No. But do I understand why he does it? And do I think that he's kind of good at it? A little bit. So in terms of how are things going to go between all these different countries, it's a huge toss-up. And I think that everybody coming to agree on there needs to be a certain amount of import and export relative to energy and other things based on the amount of technology coming out of these areas. That's going to be the great equalizer. The amount of technological value that has to come out of trade agreements will start to weigh heavier than it did in traditional trade agreements between these countries, when it was kind of just like, well, this is going to be a bi-directional, really hard, raw, intercourse session, and this person's really going to be the loser. I think that will end up being seen less and less and less, and people, even in countries maybe that don't have all of the free trade and political clout to have their citizens really make a big stink, that will just be something that people can make online more and more and more. So I think that the deregulatory nature of Trump's candidacy, if it ends up being that in a techno age, is going to be something that is very, very, very exciting to see. I mean, it may not go that way, but if it does, to see a techno economy that's deregulated in a way that's meaningful, I think is going to produce growth, the likes of which it's going to be very hard even for Bitcoin to compete with.
Gabriel D. Vaughn.
Very interesting points, Blake. The China, I do think that despite China's massive debt bubble and absolute overplaying of their hand in entering the industrial age so much later than the West, will hurt the government there. Once again, I believe that we're seeing the beginnings of the crack-ups of the 20th century nation-state model, which reached its peak in the 1970s. I think that, however, China has made a lot of bets over the past 20 years that, for example, precious metals, many other industrial decisions, many other decisions that they've made, infrastructure investment, and just real bets, like literally the PBOC, throwing money at contracts all over the world, and also the citizenry buying up real estate and tangible assets in the West. I think a lot of those bets are going to come up great for the Chinese people. I do think that the Chinese government might not see some of the benefits, but in the short term, I think that definitely the Chinese will be the winners, and things won't even out for another 10 years or so. So I think, yes, indeed, China in the short term, in the next few years, will come out a winner. Russia as well, I think, in a similar way, where the people will kind of benefit from a lot of the collapse in the West. A lot of the wealth is going to suddenly shunt toward the East, and I think they will benefit in the short term. Long term, I think I'm definitely bearish on governments.
Ian DiMartino.
I have a question, but I'm going to wait till after Ian.
Okay, yeah, when it comes to China, they got a lot of things going on themselves. They have some racial unrest there. There's a lot. China's a lot bigger country than it looks on the map, and I don't mean like physically. I just mean like and all the different ethnic groups and regions and how they can sometimes bump up against each other. But if China wants to sort of take over some of our role over in the global ecosystem and sort of be the policeman of the world like we've been for the past 50 years or so, I say let them. If they want to deal with those issues that we've been trying to take care of and failing at, then I say, go ahead. And I don't think they're going to find it any easier than we found it. But yeah, if they're going to be the winner of this election, I mean, I think their economy is more dependent on their own policies. Like they have their central government will tell their governors that they have to make a certain amount of GDP or produce certain GDP every year. And so that's led to things like ghost cities where they got these gigantic cities the size of Houston and no one's living in them. So, they have their own issues, and I don't know how long they can survive with those issues. But so, I mean, I don't know. I don't think they care that much about who our president is, as long as he doesn't rock the boat that much, and we haven't seen what Trump's going to do yet.
I think it's a huge opportunity for China, a huge victory, but there is a chance. Remember, Trump is this negotiator. If he believes the Chinese have been controlling their currency, which we know they have, if he wants them to do less of that, if he wants to equal out trade relations, maybe he wants to protect the intellectual property of companies that are making stuff in China and then having it knocked off and stolen. Who knows where he's going to come down on this? He is a businessman. He's seen as a protector of the corporate system. And is he going to stand up against China? But
Well, that's
we're
a
gonna have to
that's
wait
a
and
good
see.
question and a good equivalency too. I mean, does a businessman mean the protector of the corporate? And God, I hope not. I mean, it definitely might. But when Gabe was talking, especially about China, he made some good points. But he was talking about wind energy and various different types of energy, because I think that even though different intellectual property patents are being sat on by oil corporations, intellectual property is not. I mean, that's like, a rule, like, hey, like I made a rule for you and you can't play with those blocks. But if I'm not watching for a while, you're going to build with those blocks and you're going to, prosper with those blocks. So do you think, Gabe, that China might start to come out of the races with some specifically wind technology that's going to put the world on edge? Do you think that that's maybe reaching too far into the what if bag?
I think maybe it's not reaching far enough into the what if bag. I think we're going to see some technologies, like I said, some hidden science technologies leaking out of the capsule that they've been hidden in and kept very, very, very far away from mainstream culture. I think we're going to see.
And you think that not just the market has contributed to these, but there's also maybe even some other sources that have contributed to technologies that we have just not been able to
yeah. Yeah, I would describe that as the shadow government, or maybe deep state. I don't know which one it is. I think it's deep state. Yes, it's basically all those hidden budgets.
What is the deep state?
Well, the deep state would be the power brokers that are pulling the strings. So as opposed to the shadow government, which is
like the CIA taking money and then being able to fund themselves.
Right. Deep state would be the players that are kind of.
I've heard of shadow, but not deep state.
Yeah, shadow government would be like CIA and hidden aspects that are actually pulling government strings. Deep state would be appointed people and people that are behind the scenes that are actually doing the shunting of power and money here and there.
The people that stay on between administrations too, right?
There's that as well, but yeah, exactly. Deep state would be ingrained bureaucrats as well. I
try to be as abreast of this stuff as I can, but I mean, I have a family at this point. Like most of my days spent playing with my kids, so I mean, I'm definitely not just asking for the audience. I'm asking for myself as well.
Yeah. I think deep state, like Ian pointed out, is less on the secret side and more just ingrained. Bureaucracy, as opposed to the shadow government, which is the secret side, right? That they want to keep clandestine. And so, what I think is this hidden tech is going to come out, like I mentioned before. All the governments know about it, and they've been trying to clamp down on it. And because all of the more powerful technology gets, the more powerful, the more high technology individuals can get a hold of, the more their power increases and the power of despotic nation states decreases. So it's not in the interest of tyrannical institutions to allow individuality, empowering technology to get out. But I think it's inevitable. We're in the age of leaks. We're going to see that stuff. So I think that these technological advances won't necessarily come out of China, because it'll come out of wherever. There will be rediscoveries in the mainstream academia, which has already been happening really since 2011 or so. And we're seeing now the basic science and the basic physics being questioned, because they even the mainstream science don't claim they know the grand unified field theory. And now we're seeing the holographic principles being investigated, and we're going to start to see energy tech coming out from that. And it's going to come from random places, not from large nation states.
Are there good places to research grand unified field theory tech? Because I mean, for right now, the best place that I've heard of is there is 11-dimensional quantized space theory, and as far as doing mathematics,
that's what you're describing. Fun. No, that you're describing string theory, and these are all the workarounds because of these the shadow.
Yeah, I'm aware that they would be workarounds, which is why I'm wondering where is the alternate viewpoint.
The alternate viewpoints will be found at like really, ghetto sites on the internet that, that are put together by lots of random people. But basically, I think David Wilcock personally is my rabbit hole guide. David Wilcock talks a lot about these technologies and really citing a lot of genuine science, but much of it coming out of non-Western sources. So India and especially Russia, where in the 90s they opened up all this Soviet research that's absolutely crushing and destroys the entire mainstream physics narrative. And it's all from the 50s through the 90s and later, of course, but much of it hasn't been translated. Kozyrev and many other Russian researchers, all describing what they called torsion fields, which if you go on Wikipedia, they say it's pseudoscience, but there's reams of evidence for this stuff. And it's essentially this idea of a consciousness field that is the same thing as time and gravity.
Well, that's very, very interesting, and that's the kind of stuff that, you know, if I was bored one day and wanted to do some research, it'd be really fun to, you know, research or value check or
it's fun. It's fun stuff, you know, even if you don't throw in with it. Yeah, even if you don't throw in with it completely, it's really fun to research, and it's ETs and all that stuff. And so David Wilcock is a great author. I recommend the Source Field Investigations, which is a great book. He calls it the source field with the guys in the Russian science called torsion fields. It's, you know, it's literally creating vortexes. So very fun stuff, highly entertaining. David Wilcock. And I recommend.
I think we're starting to run out of time, so we're going to go to predictions or story of the week. Blake, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week, or maybe just a reaction to Trump? I don't know. What do you got? Just.
Well, I guess my story of the week or whatever is that the mainstream media told everybody to be really afraid of Trump, but the mainstream media hasn't been doing people any, you know, favors recently, and just don't go out and get really upset and destroy property or get arrested or get hurt. That's not going to help anybody. You know, program something, DIY, come up with a really clever argument and then make it with a rational tenable points. Do that. Like, that is the best way to respond to adversity. Don't drink, don't, you know, take up heroin and do all kinds of stuff to try to kill the pain. I mean, do something about it. If you think that you're right and that your arguments can stand the test of time and the test of controversy, get out there and do it. And I think that that's the best message that I can send to people that are really, really upset about the election, whether they're Democrats or they're anarchists or they're, you know, whoever they might be. Don't lose hope. Your life and your opinions are one of the most scarce things that have ever occurred. Don't throw that all in the trash because some you know, national figure did something you didn't like. It's just it's not worth it at all.
Gabriel D. Vaughn.
Is this story of the week?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, coming back to something I mentioned at the very beginning of the show, my story of the week is last night I was hanging out with a good friend of mine, old friend. We talk about all sorts of stuff, and we're, you know, pretty relatively rabbit hole, certainly on the economic side. And he was describing how he's on Facebook, and which I can't stand Facebook. I think it's toxic. I love Twitter. I love to control my information feed very carefully, and I don't want to know the the thoughts of my loved ones day to day. And he was describing how an old group of friends that we have, who I would describe as you might describe them as yuppies. They've been yuppies since the 90s. They were all completely on board with the mainstream narrative about the election and are in absolute shock as the world they thought they knew, the world they had been told was, you know, existed, collapses around their ears. And that was actually, you know, we're all in our own little bubble. They're in their Hillary bubble or their Democratic bubble or whatever. I'm in my total rabbit hole, tinfoil hat bubble. And I think it really struck me like, wow, the level of ignorance in our society, the lack of awareness that's so incredibly permeating and widespread around the world, but more so in the USA, where this mainstream narrative is totally trusted and people watch and believe the television news, including people in my family. But I just it didn't hit me until I realized just the level of panic that he was describing in these friends on Facebook, and that I'm seeing now everybody on the chat saying, "Oh my God, my Facebook feed, everybody I know that, you know, none of them like Bitcoin or know anything about it or whatever. Everyone I know is completely losing their minds." And I think that's an amazing thing to see. It's really important to realize that we're in this transition time. Like people on the chat once again were saying, you know, Alex Jones is, you know, this Ashraf or somebody was saying Alex Jones is actually, you know, mainstream and he's actually supported, but nevertheless he was, you know, has this narrative that's popular enough to get, he's becoming mainstream, and the mainstream narrative, the mainstream media are absolutely losing everything. They just go onto the social media and start reading tweets out. They don't have any scoop. They're not doing any journalism. So I just want the story of the week is this election happened. Even traders and speculators were betting wrong, which they should be total tinfoil hat wearers as far as I'm concerned. And what we're seeing is a massive shift.
The paranoid survive.
Right. We're seeing a massive shift in the United States consciousness, just beginning with a really extreme shock of Brexit times 1,000.
Ian DiMartino, are you ready with the story of the week or a prediction?
Yeah, I just want to start off by quoting the great Hunter S. Thompson, which is, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. This entire year has been very weird. You know, like Cavs win NBA Finals, Cubs win the World Series, and now we have reality TV star as our president. I think it's only going to get weirder as time goes on, and we all better buckle up and get ready for it. People who think Trump presidency is the weirdest thing that's going to happen in their lifetime are sadly mistaken. This is only the very beginning of just things going absolute batshit insane as this species that we are tries to deal with things like the internet and social media and Twitter and instant communication and
Bitcoin
of the norm, and it's gonna get very, very weird. So just prepare for that, everyone, and just try to be accepting of it.
It's good stuff, Ian. And
you're not stopping it.
I just wanted to highlight a movement that I've heard about on Facebook and Twitter after the Brexit campaign. And as a lot of you know, a lot of that was focused on anti-immigrant sentiment. When people voted to have England leave the European Union, what they were really saying is they didn't want to be forced by the EU to take a certain number of refugees. So it was kind of an anti-immigrant movement. What people started doing is they started wearing safety pins on their shirt, just a normal, cheap little safety pin. And what you can do is you're basically saying, it's not a political statement. I'm not saying anti-Trump. What I'm saying is it's an anti-bigotry statement, that you refuse for people of color or LGBTQ people or Muslims or whoever's being discriminated against in our society, perhaps women, because of the kind of the hysteria around Trump. You want to say, hey, I'm there for you. I'll sit next to you. I'll give you help if you're being chased. So I think it's a nice thing to do. A lot of people are wearing a safety pin now. I saw Patrick Stewart on Twitter was promoting this idea. And it's just a nice way of saying that I support your right to be your own person. And I think it's a nice counter to and I think there are very few, I don't think there's a lot of them, but to the Trump people that are saying negative things, to the people that are talking to people on streets and chasing them. I think we need to, as a group, we need to say we're tolerant, we're reasonable.
I think that's meaningless social signaling, and it's going to totally collapse and backfire.
Well, I think it's worth a shot, because I think if you can't try to do something nice, if you can only do negative things, like obviously these guys are out there doing negative things and I can't stop them in every incident. I think this is an attempt to do a positive thing.
Wearing a bullshit thing isn't doing anything positive, but actually,
I think that you're just falling into the negativity here of the only thing we can do are negative things. If the only thing we can do are negative things, then the only thing I can do is go out there and try to be there and fight racism wherever it is, and I can't be omnipresent. So I think that we can try to do a positive thing. I think that you can't just say that symbolism doesn't matter. I don't think that's true at all. I think you have to do a positive thing.
Symbolism, the time for symbolism has ended, but I agree that kind actions will speak very loud. I agree with that, but I don't think the signaling is going to work very well.
The goal for the signaling is like, I'm kind. If you need help, I'm kind, and I don't think that's a negative thing to say. I don't think that's maybe It's I think if we have this extreme negativity, we have these people out there who are going to keep attacking people in hijabs. They're going to keep attacking people because they're brown. Whatever their problem is, I think
the way to deal with that,
kind of a positive action. If we don't say, you got your swastika, I've got another symbol for you.
Thomas, the way to deal with that. The
I'm
way
like a
to deal with
middle-aged,
that is not triple
buzz-cut
parentheses
50s
or safety
husband ready
pins.
to backhand people that are hysterical.
All right. The way to deal with that is with kind actions, and those will speak loud on videos. But surrounding your name with triple parentheses and the era of social signaling has already ended. It takes action, and I highly agree with you that is the important thing moving forward. People acting kind, people stopping on this side of the highway and helping people stopping other people from committing violent acts. That's going to be big. And so if you pass on a video of somebody shutting down a hater, somebody not shutting him down, but somebody acting with tolerance and peace and kindness towards somebody,
Somebody
or
knocking out a hater. Somebody taking a hater and just caving his face in. No,
I also think that we need to recognize that there are more
problem.
good people than we think there are.
Right.
That the world is not made up of bad people. Yes,
totally
the bad people are the loudest. The bad
agree.
people are yelling at the people in the hijabs. The bad people are signaling people out.
I agree.
think the good people need to say, we're not going to have that. And if I walk into a room and I see a dozen people with safety pins on, it's not a big deal. But I think to myself, hey, here's a crowd of people that aren't going to allow this. And if you're the person that's going to yell at the hijab person, you look around, you see all these people, and maybe they have a little innocuous symbol. Maybe
but here's the thing: it's too easy to twist.
That person.
That symbolism is far too simple to twist, and it does get twisted in our society. So the first time you see somebody with a safety pin beating up somebody who didn't want a 45-year-old trans.
Well, I mean, that's also true for the Nazi symbol. I could put on a swastika and go help homosexuals, and I could go be kind to Jews, and it would be flipping the symbols. I mean, this could be said about anything.
That's a false equivalence.
I agree with. I think that's a false equivalence. I agree with a lot of the stuff, but I don't know if that's a real equivalence. But I think that that everybody should have like New York values. What are New York values? If you're at the hot dog vendor and somebody cuts in front of somebody just because they're a woman or because they're black, there's going to be a problem with a large group of people that are going to be like, "Yo, don't give individuals a hard time just because you're a dick." And I think that that's how everybody should act. And I think that that's probably a lot closer to the way that society feels right now than almost anything else. I mean, if you go into New York, you don't see somebody get cut off buying a hot dog because of stuff like that. And if you do, you generally see a lot of backlash, rightfully so, from people. So, I mean, maybe it's an issue, but I don't see it as big of an issue as other people do. I think that they want to make it an issue almost because they're trying to make up for something.
All right, I'm seeing a good note to close on in the chat. Alex says, be excellent to each other. And of course, the follow-up to that is party on, dude.
Party on, dude.
And I believe unfortunately, we've run out of time. So great for everyone for sticking in for this really long show. I wanted to talk about a lot of things about Trump. I wanted to get a lot of speculation out there. I wanted to get Ian's facts from his article out there. Everyone can check that out at coinjournal.net.
Legalize it, man.
Thanks to everybody.
I want to say thanks to Ian too. Ian has really hit the pavement and done a lot of hard work. I met Ian quite a while ago in Washington. He was the only journalist that gave a rat's shit about recording my speech about Bitcoin and the impact on actual time itself relative to time preference and economic infrastructure and stuff like that. So for him to have had the foresight to be there, to wake up, to get out of his bed for nothing and record that so that everybody else could hear it. I mean, just there's no fucking way I can ever say enough thanks to Ian. So just a goddamn champion of journalism, the likes of which I can't compare anybody else to. Let's give it up for Ian DiMartino.
Woo!
All right, so thanks to Ian for being on. Also, thanks to Tone. Tone had to take off earlier. Tone joined us all the way from Russia, and as you guys know, it's the middle of the night in Russia. So thanks for Tone for staying up. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We had a really good chat today. We tried to bring a lot of your ideas into the show so that you feel representative. And again, everyone has their own opinion on Trump. I just wanted to get them all out there. We all shared our opinions, and as you can see, we're still friends. We're not going to fight or anything. So thanks to everybody. We had about 63 people that stuck with us. Please share the link, subscribe, donate. You can probably go to Ian's article. I'll bet he's got a Bitcoin address on there. Send him a few bucks. And that's about it. We'll be back next week. Everyone check out the World Crypto Network. We've got the Bitcoin News show on Monday night. I think he's celebrating his first year anniversary. So hopefully we're gonna have a lot of people there. That should be a really big show. I think it's around 8 o'clock in the evening Pacific time.
That's
Bitcoin
right.
News Monday night. That's about it. I think we're out of time. So until next time, bye bye.
Bye.
Ta-da.